Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to share with you guys my most recent top 5 most carried knives in my collection. These are the knives that I've been carrying the most over the last couple of months out of anything else that I've got. Some of them are available, some of them are not. Some of them are inexpensive, and some of them are not. I just kind of carry what I want, and it ends up being whatever it is. So I'll try and link this stuff right down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Starting off here with number 5, I think it's important to point out that the amount of time that each of these knives gets in my pocket goes up exponentially as we proceed towards number 1. So this is actually a very recent unboxing, but I have found that it's made its way into my pocket quite a bit here, more than anything else outside of the 4 that are in front of it, and that's a very inexpensive Mora Pillora. This is a very impressive knife. If you're familiar with Microtech, then you know, I mean, that name is kind of synonymous with ultra quality for the budget territory. And much like the Velona from Microtech, also like the Mora, which is a word that I feel like a bunch of molasses is gonna fall out of my mouth whenever I say that. This is built the same way. We have a really nice and plain peel ply texture G10 scale, in this case, gray. I do have another one that's black, but this one, when they sent the 2, this was the one that, made me want to carry it all the time. We've got a nice PVD coated, or at least as far as I can tell, it's the same as the blade, gray steel liner, and then we have a titanium pocket clip, and we have a PVD coated 14C 28N blade. And let me tell you, this hasn't been used a whole lot, but the few times that I have used it, man, that blade just melts through material. It really is a nice high slicer grind, and I've just found that it's really for such an inexpensive knife, it's $47, which is incredible considering everything that you get. It's a lot of times I'm like, oh cool, like the value part of it is what makes me happy, right? But when I get this out and I cut with it, I go, man, that's nice, and I'll stop and look at it for a second, which is usually behavior that's reserved for a knife that costs a little bit more money, at least with me, right? So it's funny that such a simple knife design, and certainly a knife design that we have seen many, many times, it's funny that this is actually sort of getting not only pocket time, but my attention outside of that. This is really nice. So if you're a big fan of like maximizing your dollar when it comes to your knife purchases, I mean, obviously we all are in one way, shape, or form, but this really does it. $47, $48, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely worth it. Highly recommendable. That one will be linked down in the description. Moving on here to number 4. I'll be honest with you, it's really hard to kick this one out of my pocket. I know you guys are sick of hearing about it, but this is the truth. This is what's making it into my pocket, and that's the Sav Vision FG, in this case, in Ultim. If you have not picked this knife up, I usually, when I do this channel, when I do videos, when I talk about recommendations, it's very rare that obviously you can do whatever you want. It's very rare that I insist on something. I think the Sav Vision FG is a knife that everybody should try. And I mean, there are very few knives out there that are legitimately made for everybody. The fact that we have an ambidextrous locking system, the fact that it is so close to a budget knife, it's like $78. Right? Good materials, good ergonomics, a strong, dependable locking system, not just a fidgety, it's not just an enthusiast lock. No, it's a serious lock, right? And I mean, everything except for the bill and the clip is just about perfect. This is one of the best knives of 2023. I know it's 2024 now, but this came out in 2023. It's one of the best knives of 2023. And honestly, I think it's one of the best dollar for dollar knives in existence. I love this knife. I love using it. It's such a joy to manipulate. It is so handy, right? I mean, it really feels like an extension of myself, my hand, right? When I'm just going about my day. I think the knife is capable of course, performing simple day-to-day knife tests, and I think you can honestly take it out and beat on it pretty hard. It's not obviously it's not a fixed blade. It's not a jackhammer. It's not a pry bar, right? But Is it a quality, well-built tool? Yes, it absolutely is. This is a knife I think pretty much everybody should try and find out if it's for them. This is what I call evergreen status. The Sav Vision FG has been an absolute joy to carry. Coming from somebody who buys extremely expensive knives, I just get such a huge amount of joy out of that thing. Moving on here, here's another one that hasn't changed. Number 3, my absolute favorite knife of 2023, and that's the Microtech Ramlok stitch. In this case, fluted aluminum. You know, for the amount of whenever I do these, you know, people watching, they go, that knife doesn't even look like it's been used. I mean, so what I don't do with my knives when I get them out of my pocket is whip them across the concrete real quick so that there's definitely marks all over the handle so everybody can see that I've been using my knives, right? I also don't do the same thing to the blade. The other thing that I do is I clean the blade off. It takes quite a bit, and you have to be cutting pretty specific things to like scratch your blade up. What I use my knives for is very, very simple things. Like thin plastic, cardboard, right? Every now and then some rope. Mostly stuff that's not going to scratch it, right? So I'm not out in my yard digging holes with my knife so that I can go, this will make for a great picture on Instagram. I can show everybody how I've been using my stuff so hard. I don't do that, right? So, I mean, over time, certainly there's going to be marks and things like that, but nothing here recently has been put through any amount of paces that would show that type of wear. But, you know, for the amount of work that it's been through, which is some decent, like decently heavy cardboard cutting, obviously everything from Christmas. I do like to break that stuff down. And just cutting through a lot of the plastic, getting kids' toys out of plastic and the containers these days, man, it's a freaking nightmare. And this knife was pretty much the dedicated Christmas knife. So it's funny that not only is the edge holding up really well, which honestly is a surprise to me from what I've heard about, you know, the Rockwell hardness on these, but also just the blade itself, right? The tumbled finish that Microtech puts on these. Really, I mean, it's just a couple of little marks in the edge here and there, but, you know, I guess I've got a little bit of debris out at the tip, but that's it. This knife is really fantastic, and the stitch is my favorite ergonomic design ever. A lot of people look at this and they'll go, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. That's fine. Personally, I love how this thing looks. I think it's super unique. I don't think there's anything out there that looks exactly like the stitch. Obviously, there's profiles and things that borrow elements and look similar in this or that. But the stitch, the complete package, there's absolutely nothing else out there that looks exactly like it. And the fact that we now have a manual stitch that's not the custom, that you can actually deploy using the opening hole, and one that is ambidextrous, that just makes this so perfect. Everything except for the pocket clip. I love this knife so much. It is such a joy. This is going to be something that I carry consistently for a very long time. So moving on here, the final two on the list, number 2 and number 1, are actually knives that are different. They have taken the place of my previously most carried knives. So moving on here to number 4, and that's the new Microtech Combat Troodon. I have never actually consistently carried a Combat Troodon, and there's 2 reasons. Number 1, well, actually there's 3 reasons. Number 1, in the past, the Combat Troodon was a knife that had a price tag that I just wasn't comfortable with. Obviously now, if you've been watching my channel, the price tag on the Combat Troodon is not really one that I shy away from. In fact, I've got knives that cost twice as much that I carry, at least somewhat regularly. So this is no longer a territory that bothers me. If it bothers you, that's perfectly fine. I'm just letting you know, kind of what my deal is here. So in the past, I've never actually consistently carried one. Number 2, I've always told myself that the thing is too big. But I think realistically, the thing that bothered me the most was the amount of effort it took to deploy it. I could do it, but it wasn't comfortable, right? Even those of you who like to pride yourself on how tough and strong your thumbs are, okay, right? But realistically, it's still not, the old Combat Troodon is not a super comfortable knife to deploy, especially if you have manipulated something like the Guardian Tactical Recon 35 or Recon 40. Those things put the old Combat Troodon to shame because they're so much easier to deploy without sacrificing any power, right? So I just didn't ever want to carry it, but man, this new one is so much easier to deploy. And I mean, I can do it with my index finger. It still feels like the Combat Troodon power. It's got plenty of power. I love this thing. In fact, now I really love carrying a large OT. I realize this thing isn't too big to carry. What you're carrying is just this, right? Just the frame, because the blade comes straight out the front. This has never failed, not once. I've had a couple of issues with my new Hera, but none with the Combat Troodon. I love the new look. I honestly even like the pocket clip. I didn't think I'd ever like a pocket clip with one of those ceramic balls on it, but I do. I also love the fact that I've got two edges and it's quite a bit of blade, right? This is massively overkill for what I need. But that's not really how I choose what I want to carry, right? I don't carry the exact tool that I may or may not need that. No, I just carry whatever I like, right? So this is obviously super overkill for me, a regular Joe, day to day. But I love carrying it. I love getting this thing out. Every single time I get an opportunity to get this thing out and use it, I'm like, oh yes, Combat Troodon time, right? This is awesome. And the fact that it's easier to deploy just makes it substantially better. These are hard to get right now. Don't get mad at me if you're watching this. Why are you showing that to me? I can't get it. You have to wait. Sometimes things come in and out of stock, and you just got to wait. And you got to keep checking. Welcome to the knife world. That's how it works, right? So these are about $460. Completely and totally USA made, right? If you're new to knives and that price shocks you, that's the tip of the iceberg. They get way more expensive than this. But as far as fully USA made, and I mean actually USA made, not the companies that are faking it, right? Actually USA made, full-size OTFs, this is actually pretty competitive. And it's less expensive than their previous Combat Troodon, which is kind of wild. Very, very recommendable, an absolute joy to carry. And the last one, which is probably going to make everybody mad, but eventually you will be able to get your hands on this knife. The knife that I have been carrying the most, that's going to be the Winterblade Co Prototype. Technically, it's a prototype. This is essentially a finished product. I forget what Brian calls this locking system back here, but it's like two separate pieces and one kind of flips back, almost like the GTC, the spring-loaded flipper tab, but it's part of the lock. You also have what acts as a crossbar lock without having Omega springs, which is just really great. It's really, really nice there. The thumb stud, which a lot of people complain, is only on one side. You literally just pop this out. This is being held in with magnetism, very strong magnetism. So you can flip this over to the other side if you want to. You can put it on whatever side you like. If you're left-handed and you like to use a thumb stud, you put it on this side, right? You can also use this little opening hole right here, which works really well, whether you want to thumb it out with the thumb hole or you want to reverse flick it, right? Or let's say you don't want to do any of that. You just want to open and close it with this sort of magnetic, springy, flipper tabby thing right there. Or you can use either tab on either side, right? You can use that to deploy the knife. The idea here, a lot of people reduce this to unnecessary fidget factor, but the idea is convenience and ease of manipulation without sacrificing utility, which is exactly what Brian accomplished here. You can think whatever you want about that, but I'm telling you that's exactly what happened. No deployment method, no mechanism is in the way of something that would need to be in place for you to use the thing efficiently. The whole design works really, really well, and it looks like a series of trapezoids and rectangles and triangles, and that's geometrically, I mean, yeah, kind of, but it does work. The knife is actually ergonomic, and it's bigger than the Factor. I like the Severn more than I like the Factor. The other cherry on top is, this thing has a lot of cherries on it. The pocket clip, which is very well designed, is absolutely mountable for left-handed carry, right? That's really cool. This is a truly ambidextrous knife, and it also looks awesome, especially, a lot of people think this is baked in Damascus. It's not actually. This has been lasered onto the blade just for fun. But it is M390, and then we have the titanium here. Now, these are going to come in a few different forms. I think the website has pre-order information on it. I'll link it over there. Again, if you go to a website that's taking pre-orders, sometimes it says sold out. Sometimes it means literally, and sometimes it means it's not available yet. So make sure you check and read. Take a look what you're actually looking at there. I don't know what the delivery is on these, but I know it's in 2024. So I can tell you right now, at the very beginning of 2024, this is going to be a contender for the best of 2024, right? I mean, I know I've got a long way to go. I know there's a lot of stuff to come out, but as of right now, this thing is so far in the lead as far as the best thing, right? It's not even funny. I know what to expect for 2024, and I know there's going to be some surprises. But as of right now, everything is fighting against the Winterblade Co Prototype, because this is phenomenal. This thing caters to as many different people as I can possibly imagine. However you like to manipulate your knife, and whatever hand is your dominant hand, the Severn is going to feel right at home. It is really awesome, and it cuts like a dream. God, I love this thing. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for my top 5 most carried knives as of at least the last couple of months. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, links down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on the Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.